We're back, baby. We're back.
What's going on, everybody?
It's episode what? What is it?
10.
Episode 10? We made it to double digits, and neither of us has killed anybody yet, or each other.
We actually got
shocking.
3 more subscribers, I think, from our last episode. We're now at 33, which is my favorite number of the year, so...
And we have visitors in the background. Ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty evident. Wow. Morgan, say hi. You already did, but say hi again.
Hi.
And we have Miss Alyssa back.
Say hi to the audience.
Yeah, she's back in the house. In the barn of dreams, as I call it. It's a little toasty in here today.
Yeah,
Not too bad. But we got the fan on.
I'm surprised we don't have any cold weather right now. We had 2 weeks where it was pretty chilly. It's been chilly in the mornings, but now it's been even in the 70s in the morning. I don't know what's going on.
They call that Indian summer, right?
Or
really?
Fake fall.
Fake fall.
Fake fall.
I've never heard that.
I never heard that either. So
it's fake. It's a fake.
It's a fun
fall.
fact.
Yeah, because first it's oh, it's so cool, and then all of a sudden it's 89 degrees. Yeah, it's fake fall. Fuck you, fuckers. That's literally what it is.
All right. Well, we made it 1 minute into the episode, and an F-bomb came out. Alrighty. All right. We're back in full swing, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we're seeing it as normal. We had the last episode that the last episode we talked. It was just a big video about Charlie Kirk and what happened with him. And while things will be mostly proceed as normal, can't help but talk about that a little bit today. But that's actually in regards to what RFK is proposing in regards to cracking down on video games.
Well, yeah, let's just jump right into it. That was the topic you wanted to tackle.
Yep.
I know a little bit about it. I just did some research today about just video games in general, RFK's actual stance. I watched the video of what he actually said, a little bit on social media, and the media in general has kind of spun it a little bit, of what he said and actually said. They're
which is nothing new
different
from the legacy media.
Minutely different, but we'll get into that. What's your take on the situation where RFK attributes as a variable, there's the key word, as a variable, that video games can have an impact or play a role in violence, gun violence, and mass shootings? What would you like to say about that?
So initially, I used to think it would be a little bit of a concern. It's always a concern when anything, because you can make this argument about movies, TV shows, music, video games. In this case, there's always room for concern when, bless you, when anything pops up, whether it's social media, by the way, is another contributing factor to violence and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, though, as decades gone on, and I try to remove my bias, I don't try to say because I like something that, therefore, I'm going to disregard the concerns of it. That's just an ignorant thing to do. With that being said, they've been doing these studies for decades, and ever since video games were ever invented.
Right.
The second that a gun was introduced, they started saying, oh, video games are promoting or they're contributing to violence in this country. But the problem with that is after all the studies that have come out, they've shown that it's actually the majority of people that play games, and I'm not just talking majority, I'm talking probably 99% of the people are not violent individuals, or if they were, it's because of issues they already had to begin with. So my conclusion with that is, I don't think it's if it's a problem, then everything around us is a problem. If you go on Twitter, someone will incite violence. If you go on even Facebook, people like to make jokes of, oh, who goes on Facebook that's under the age of 50? I know that's a joke. I use Facebook still. Mainly to keep in touch with family members. You can make this argument for movies. They say, look at the movies we're watching. Look at the TV shows we're watching. Look at the music. Now, granted, music's a little bit different because it plays on the radio and all that. We can debate that if you want to, or we can talk about it. But gaming is just, and they've looked at patterns, people commit violence or people who happen to play video games. It wasn't because of the games, it was because they already had issues. So I think the fact that RFK is trying, and I remember this from, what was it, a year before the election took place, that one of the things he talked about, I was interested in him. Like, I remember I was watching, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to look more into him. And I was okay with his stance on, like, you know, the violence in this country and the sake of our children. But then one of the things he mentioned in 2023 was, oh, we got to look into video games and stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, that's a 20-year-old opinion that has not aged well. Video games are just not that much of a threat. Because if that's a threat, again, why don't you go look at the people who are watching these TV shows about serial killers, stalkers, and crazy exes, male or female, that are going after people because they slept with another person or something. I would argue, if we're going to go down that rabbit hole, go look at the TV shows before you go look at video games. That's just my stance. I don't know if anyone thinks movies, because movies are more of a thing than ever because of streaming and all that stuff. So they're always saying, "Oh, I want to. Hey, can someone make a suggestion to me for Netflix or something like that?" They're always looking for a movie to watch. So the consumption of content for movies has skyrocketed. It's completely skyrocketed. Whereas gaming, I think, still has increased, especially with, like, as I told you, the Nintendo Switch. So it's more of like a family system, or the Switch 2 in this case that just came out this year. But disregarding that, I think the rate of gamers, like, increasing, it doesn't even remotely compare to the amount of people that are consuming movies and TV shows. That's just the way I observe the world. And I say to someone who's a gamer, and I love my movies, as I've mentioned on here, but it's just, there's just little to no evidence that the cause of violence in this country, or that led to Charlie Kirk's assassination, was because they decided to play Call of Duty. So I don't know what you think, Fletch.
I think there's, well, I mean, first we have to establish, what did RFK actually say recently, because it's resurfaced. Like you said, he has referenced this in the past. 2023, I believe he said it in 2024 2 or 3 times, in reference to, it's a minor impact, but in his belief system there is some sort of variable impact of video games on the increase in violence. That's his actual quote. He's not attributing, like, all of the mass shootings to just video games. So if you listen to his actual speech, here's the 3 variables that RFK, and these are RFK's variables, not necessarily mine, but I do agree with probably about 99% of what he has to say. His first variable on the increase in violence since the 90s, and basically he's honing in and he's focusing on mass shootings. So here's a fun fact before we get into his variables. All right, you got 390 million firearms in the United States, roughly. That's an estimate.
You
right?
said 390 million?
Firearms. And you have about roughly 360 million people. But you have 390 million firearms in the U.S., roughly, give or take, because some of them aren't registered, et cetera, et cetera. So you have a ratio of 120 guns per 100 Americans. Does that make sense? You have guns above people. So you got about a 120 over 100. That was roughly the same ratio. That's what it is currently, 2025. That's roughly the same ratio, 120 over 100, as it was in the 1950s. Now, obviously, less people, less guns back then, but same ratio. Understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's not the amount of guns out there. That's not the issue. Sure. That's what I personally want to convey to the audience and to anybody I talk to in a conversation, on the street, on the phone, wherever. The amount of guns is not the issue. I don't concede with a very liberal viewpoint or a very left-wing philosophy. I don't think you do either.
Most definitely
in
not.
terms of like, well, hey, we got to have gun control. No, that's not the answer.
Nope.
So
And it's been proven time and time again that it doesn't work.
So that's the ratio, just to show that the ratio has been pretty constant, along those lines of always remember that number to the audience. It's a nice little dinner point conversational piece. It's 120 over 100, meaning 120 guns per 100 Americans. So yeah, there are more firearms than there are people, but that's not the issue. The ratio has been consistent over the years. Here's what RFK says are the three variables in terms of why we're having an increase in mass shootings. His first, and he thinks it's the primary primary focus in terms of variables, is the dependence on psychiatric drugs. I agree with him wholeheartedly.
110% agree with that one. The increase of pharmaceutical use and reliance has led to a downgrade of society. So
correct. I agree with you.
I've even said this before. Just one quick thing. I've even said this about RFK. I can disagree with him on 95% of issues, but there was one thing why I say I tolerate him that I fully agree with, that it's argued 95% of politicians probably don't even talk about.
Yeah.
Is his address of health, the health crisis in America. I didn't hear Trump talk about this. I didn't hear Harris. The only health people talked about was, one side says we don't believe in vaccine mandates. The other says we should push vaccines that don't even necessarily affect children in a positive or negative way. That's the most they talked about. But he is like, look at the shit we're eating. Look at the stuff, the chemicals that are going to our food. The amount of dyes that affect, I've always agreed with him. So when I criticize RFK, it's not because of my bias against it. It's just, in my opinion, he has an opinion that has not aged well in 20 years.
Correct. I got you, and I'm with you 100%. You even had a fun little fun fact about McDonald's.
Yes, and actually, just to show that I'm not biased against him or whatever.
Yeah, like it was. I didn't know this, which is amazing.
So a day or two ago, this is per the leading report on Twitter. They've shown that they're pretty legitimate. If you guys want to fact check me and say they're not a legit organization, that's fine. I'm just saying that anytime they upload something, it more so comes to pass. They even say, according to X person, they'll make X report. But something I agree with RFK Jr. on is pushing these companies like they just did. Goodness gracious, I can't. Didn't they just ask Steak and Shake? I think about a few months ago said, due to per RFK's recommendations for health improvements, that I think they were like changing their oils or something. They're changing the way that their foods are made. So you both are you're
getting
both
away,
in the audience.
Getting away from seed oils.
Yes, I forget what else they were going with, but I know that they were changing
talon.
Beef talon.
Sadly.
Beef tallow.
What do you mean? Sadly, like what is that worse or what do you?
We can't eat that. Me and her can't eat that.
So
like if they have fries or anything, like they say, it's vegan, it's technically not because they're putting it in beef.
Fair enough. I mean, that is unfortunate.
Speaking,
and guess what?
Tallow is really good for you.
Yeah.
That's what my sister used.
Back in the day, I mean, that's how they cooked
So
everything.
that right there.
Seed oils are much cheaper. It always comes down to money.
But they're really bad for you.
Horrible for you.
Yeah.
What they do to your organs is
sure.
bad.
But
you know that, yeah.
But with that all being said, and I am sorry that you two can't eat that. But overall, exception's not the rule. But there is something I gotta give RFK Jr. credit for. Is another fast food place, very popular. Everyone's gonna know what this is according to leading report that McDonald's USA announced that they're going to invest $200 million into regenerative farming practices, which is in alignment with RFK Jr.'s MAHA agenda, Make America Healthy Again. Now,
pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. So, I approve of that.
Baby.
Now, do I think that McDonald's is also going to be comparable to something like Five Guys, for example? I don't think it's going to be in terms of quality. But I am always, again, credit where credit is due. If you make a step towards being slightly better, I will give you credit on that one. So, again, I don't have a bias towards RFK. It's just I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. Case in point, war discussing.
Yeah. No,
so you said you were going to get into your second bullet?
The second variable is social media. And I agree with him 1,000%. in terms of the influence, the influx of like radicalizing young people, which is exactly why Charlie was so impactful. Charlie Kirk, you know, unfortunately he's gone, but he was so impactful because it's with the younger audience. He considers that, meaning he, RFK, considers social media a huge variable into why there is an increase in violence rhetoric, and in hence mass shootings. I agree with him. I mean, is it the whole pie? Is it the whole story? No. But I mean, it does.
Sure.
There is a variable. I think the highest variable, the highest impact of his three that he gave in the most recent speech, which was, I think it was 3 days ago when he got questioned by the reporters, multiple reporters, and then he laid out his basic. He did it in a nutshell. I'm summarizing because it's a 18, 19 minute like conversation he has with reporters where he reiterates, and then the third one is why it's now come back to the surface. It's why everybody's up in arms, because he said, you know, violent video games. He does think that's a variable. Now, we could have a disagreement with him. I agree in the hierarchy of his variables.
Yeah.
He's saying that the psychiatric drugs play the most influence. He's saying that there's a minor influence, that they're going to do independent studies with the National Institute of Health, the NIH, about video games, about the psychiatric drugs. They're going to devote some money to studying all of these variables. But he feels that video games are a small variable. I don't know either way how I agree. There is an increase in terms of the violence in video games, but I don't know if you can make that correlation to a mass shooting. Now, on a psychiatric drug, that's a completely different story.
Oh yeah,
it alters your way of thinking. It alters your state of mind, and most importantly, your decision making.
This is why
that's what I think all of the resources should go into. But I mean, the guy's in charge of, you know, like he's the health secretary, so to speak. If he wants to devote some money to studies on the impact of video games, I don't think it's a waste of money, but I think most of the resources should go to studying psychiatric drugs for sure, because I think they play a huge role.
Well, yeah, Big
in
Pharma
what's going
has
on
contributed
right
to
now in
a lot
society.
of Big Pharma has contributed to a lot of problems in this country, and that's one of the reasons why my stubborn self, and I say so, who works in the hospital, and I'm not saying my hospital is guilty of this or anything. This is my problem with Big Pharma as a whole, is they've been pushing stuff that has been proven not to work for us, or they'll claim that it works, but then it completely it completely changes your psyche. And that's why I always tell people, they say they're on pills that help with their anxiety or something. I always tell them, you're welcome to live your life, but you shouldn't be taking those, because what happens is we all have issues, okay? We're all human and stuff, and there's obviously extreme cases where if a person in this room said that on this blue chair over here, that there's a man with horns sitting right here, you know, we're definitely going to say like that person's hallucinating, but they say, oh, it's because I just have this urge of punching someone in the face. Dude, how many times have you guys gotten angry and you're like, I had to deck this dude, right? But it's all a matter of self-control. And that there is, I have to.
There wasn't any cameras. I don't want to talk about it.
But, you know, when I play a video game, and I even said this when my anger issues were worse, I'm proud to say my anger issues have improved drastically. But even when I was a little kid, I wasn't thinking, oh, I can go do this to someone in real life. And even people who were more on the mentally ill side than even I ever could be, even they're like, I don't think it's okay just because in Gears of War I can use a chainsaw to cut someone up or something like that. Most people intuitively know that it's wrong. Like when you're playing a video game, it's a simulation. It's something that you want to do but you can't do because you know it's morally wrong, or there are legal ramifications of it, you know, stuff like that. So I do agree there's a discussion to be had. I just don't think that video games, again, we can talk about social media, but if he's going to go after video games, he might as well go after TV shows and music. But that's just my 2
And
cents.
movies. I agree with you.
And movies, yes. I keep forgetting that one.
I think he could do himself a huge benefit and just come out and say, I want to focus most of the resources I have at my disposal on our youth dependence on psychiatric drugs. He would totally minimize all the chatter because everybody's up in arms, especially the gamers. I watched a couple videos about like podcasts that are hosted by like intense gamers, and they're just going nuts. Like everything's about RFK's terrible person, blah blah blah, and they're getting off track. I think Bobby, come into my office. Bobby, I'm gonna give you a call. So, Bobby, do me a favor. Go on CNN and just say one thing. We're gonna focus on the psychiatric drugs. All kidding aside, I think he would do himself and everybody around him.
I'll tell you something. If he went after Big Pharma,
because that's really what I think he meant to say, but it came off because he's so analytical. And I'm not defending and I'm not excusing him. I'm just saying he's so analytical with the way he thinks that he literally said, oh yeah, and violent video games, I think we should take a look at that. And that's what everybody honed in on. But he said it as an addendum. He said it third down the list.
This sounds like what you said. This actually sounds exactly like, almost exactly like how you mentioned, because I told you recently that I think about 2 months ago, I want to say, that I watched Brett Weinstein talk to Tucker Carlson about like a debate on evolution and Christian, the beginning. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe this wasn't even you, but I think you told me that that's why someone like Brett Weinstein, for quite a lot of people, might be hard to listen to, is because the way he speaks is not, what's the way you say it?
It's not conversational.
Yeah,
it's not
he
easy
sounds super like, I don't want to say machine, because he's authentic.
He comes across super intellectual, and he's analytical in what he says. Brilliant guy. So is Kennedy. RFK's a brilliant guy. He's a constitutional lawyer. I mean, if you ever tried to read his book, I mean, I tried twice. It's difficult. That's the way his brain operates, but they don't come across conversational. You can say what you want about Donald, and everybody does, but no. You could say what you want about Don, all kidding aside. Yeah. He has a way of being conversational with the ordinary person. That's why, which is why he got elected. And that was one of the reasons that a lot of people, I even saw, credit to the Young Turks for giving credit where credit is due. That's why a lot of people were intrigued, even people that might not ever have been involved, never will be involved in politics. Even they were like, dude, Trump going to McDonald's was fascinating for the election, because, like, one of the things Michael and also the Daily Wire, shout out to him, said about. I like listening to him. I've definitely gotten back into listening to Michael more, and he said one of the things that Donald said that was very intriguing was, I think he was passing out like a McDonald's meal to somebody. He worked the drive-thru. Yeah, he worked the drive-thru. And the guy said, hey, look, I think Donald said something like, you're great, you're important. He goes, oh, I'm just a normal guy. He goes, no, you're not a normal human being. You're special. You're an American. Like, you're very important. Person. Like, people like to hear that. And again, say what you want about Donald. You love him or hate him. The dude knows how to have a conversation. He knows how to be conversational. And, people can say, like, oh, my God, he's a womanizer. He's not great towards women. And he's an asshole. Now, I can agree. I can agree he's an asshole. But and I can agree he's an asshole. But I even told, like, someone who was my female coworker. She's not there anymore. Shout out to her. I'm not going to say her name just because I don't know if she wants me to put her name on there. But I was telling her, like, as sweet as a human being she is, I think if Trump went up to her and, she said hello, I think he would be an absolute sweetheart, because he knows how to do that. What are her initials? No one will know. D. D? First initial?
Yes.
What's the last name initial?
It's very. Her last name is obtuse. I think it's M. I have no clue.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. So,
Next episode, we're disclosing.
yeah, we're gonna disclose that in the next episode. But that's my 2 cents on RFK. And as someone, actually, I have one last question for you. We'll close off here.
Yeah.
As someone, let me ask you: are you a RFK guy because of the stance on health, or are you kind of like a moderate when it comes to like an RFK? And like,
I love RFK for his stance on health. That's my main draw to him as a political figure. I wouldn't, if he ran for president, you'd have to weigh whoever he ran against. If he ran for him, but that's what I told you when Trump was running and he was assembling what they call the Dream Team, the Avengers, whatever vocabulary.
The Maha Avengers or something like that.
When you're putting Kennedy in the exact space that he needs to be to make the most beneficial impact on the country. Being the health secretary, being in charge of like health in America, there is no other perfect job for RFK
than that.
Right.
And I like what
if
Donald,
he ran for president, I mean, there's some things, we've talked.
Yeah.
I like him as a human being. I like that he persevered over, the whole situation with his voice. He's a good human being. He really is. He's got a good heart.
I don't disagree with that.
Comes from a drug I like his rebound story, how he basically saved his life and moved on, addicted to drugs in his youth. I mean, everything about him I like. I mean, some of his political stances and views, I don't know if I agree with them, but his views on health, about what the pharmaceutical industry has done to us over the last 50 years, about what we're
last
eating,
5 years especially.
Those two things especially, what we're eating in terms of processed food, he wants to just fix it or try to fix as much as possible. You got the perfect guy in the perfect position. He's taken on, there's 31 or 32 lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies. He's never lost. You have a professional constitutional lawyer in a position where he can help the everyday citizen. It's amazing. And I agree with him on the psychiatric drugs. I give or take on the violent video games. I don't think you should devote many resources, but you and I don't get to make that decision. So they're going to devote some resources, but probably come up with, like you say, the same ending that they have over the last 30 years, where it's not that much of an impact at all.
And that's what's getting me about this, is the fact that if there's already precedence for decades and decades of research done on something, it's a matter of it's squirrels,
I got you.
That's another thing I think it's a squirrel to use to help distract. It's like, look, a squirrel, but in reality there's a bigger issue.
There's a bigger issue
to
which
something.
I think he has identified. I'd love to hear some intense research over the next 2-3 years about the youth dependence, that 12-year-old to the 18-20-year-old age range, the dependence on psychiatric drugs. It's nuts. It's like at a 30%.
You can bet we're going to be talking.
1 out of 3 kids is on some sort of.
It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
For antidepressant, I'm like, what is going on? You can't hand that stuff out like candy. Why aren't they doing me and Alyssa could talk about how many, there's different herbs, there's tons of vitamins that can improve your situation if you're going through a depression spell or what they call cycle. There's tons of stuff you can give somebody. I don't like that the drugs are just handed out right off the rip.
Yeah, it's handed out like candy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'll leave it on this. I thought this was a fun fact. This is what RFK in his 19-minute rant or conversation he had with the reporters that sparked all this controversy about RFK, he thinks all the mass shootings are due to video games. That's not what he said, but he did.
Which, by the way, I never made that claim. I don't think
he did say there's a variable there that should be looked at. But Switzerland, you remember that ratio that we talked about at the beginning of the episode? 120 guns, 120 guns for every 100 Americans. That's basically the ratio. And it's been like that consistent for the last 60 years. Give or take, it's right around that same ratio. 118 over, 110, or it's basically 120 over 100. Switzerland has that same ratio, same number of guns, per capita. Like they have that same ratio, 120 over 100. Why am I talking about this? This is super interesting. Switzerland doesn't do near the amount of giving or having available psychiatric drugs to youth that we have. Not even close. It's a country of neutrality. It's always considered like, hey, what's the neutral country? What's the safe country? Switzerland. They have the same number of gun over citizens ratio that we do, 120 over 100. They haven't had a mass shooting. This is what I found amazing, and I'll leave you guys with this. They haven't had a mass shooting in 23 years.
What?
They haven't had a mass shooting committed by somebody in their youth, a younger person under the age of 30, like in 23 years. Guess what the clip is in terms of like how many mass shootings we have. Like this is a good dinner conversation piece, or if you're out with somebody, you want to blow somebody away with a stat. What is ours under the age of 30? How many mass shootings happen at what clip? Every 23 hours, we have a mass shooting of some sort, some capacity, whether it's small or whether the major ones you see on the news. They haven't had one in 23 years. We have one every
hours.
day. Every day. 24 hours in a day. 23 hours.
Well, folks, you definitely could take that to the
What
bank
am I
and
saying?
Tell us
Why is that like relevant? Why is that like kind of like ironic? Well, they don't. Oh, it's raining. That's what that noise is. Is that what that is? It's raining. They don't administer like it's like 1/100th of the psychiatric drugs to their youth. Maybe that's where we should be looking in terms of the psychiatric drugs, the antidepressants, stuff like that, and stop looking at, I wouldn't put a primary source on video games at all. I wouldn't even put a primary source as social media. I would go after
the pharmaceuticals.
Figure out what, there's got to be a correlation there. And you go on other European countries, it might not be as drastic, but it's the same thing. They don't administer the psychiatric drugs we do, and we're the ones with all the problems with our youth. So I think there's something to be said there.
Yep.
All right, well, I think that's a great little wrap up. That was a great episode. I hope you guys got some nuggets.
Yeah.
We call the American Fan Nuggets, the Fletch and Nick Show nuggets that you can take with you throughout the week.
Yeah.
And blow people away with your little stats. We're going to come back in a couple minutes and we're going to talk about movie theater stories.
Yes.
Monumental,
we got
good
plenty
and
of those.
bad movie theater stories. We're going to hear from Morgan, and we're going to hope, I can't guarantee anything, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hope maybe get a 10-second movie theater bite from Melissa. We'll work on her, maybe give her some of those psychiatric drugs that RFK doesn't want to talk about, or doesn't want to maybe she'll like spill the beans, but we don't know yet. But we'll come back in a little bit, and that's all, folks.
And we'll see you on the next one.
Yep.